Having a good structure in Confluence doesn't just happen. It takes a lot of planning and energy. So here, I'm going to show you how we can use Confluence Whiteboards to plan out a successful content structure in Confluence. Whiteboards are a tool available in every version of Confluence Cloud that let you visually collaborate. Here, though, we're going to use it for a specific purpose, mapping out what our Confluence content should look like. This will give us a blueprint for then building that content out in Confluence. Now, this is important because one of the biggest complaints about Confluence is folks can't find things. And one of the root causes of this is there's no structure. People come in and add content wherever they think it should go. They don't follow a plan, and it isn't obvious where they should put their new content. This results in a bit of a mess. For me, it's kind of like my home office. If I don't take time to organize it, and if I don't have a plan for where things should go, eventually stuff ends up everywhere, making it hard to find and frustrating. So here, we're going to use a whiteboard to map out what our space should look like. We'll use different shapes to represent different types of content, and we'll clearly indicate which content lives under which other content in the hierarchy. This will give us a great blueprint to then go actually build our space out. Or it gives us a tool to look at over time to see how our team's needs have changed. Maybe we realize we don't need a particular section, or maybe we missed one entirely and we have to add it. Having this whiteboard makes it much easier to figure out where content should go and is a great guide as you develop your space. Now we're going to jump into Confluence Cloud Premium, but this works with any version of Confluence Cloud to see how whiteboards can help us map out our space and have a more successful content hierarchy. Here I have a people team or human resources space in Confluence Cloud, and I can see folks have already started adding some content to it. Before we add anything else, though, we're going to plan this out by creating a whiteboard. I'm not going to use any templates, and instead just give myself a big open space. Now, I'll mainly be using shapes here in the middle to represent pieces of content. I will also, however, drag in existing content. So we'll start with a home page. This is the top level of the space, and it's where people go when they first come to the space. So I always represent this at the top with a circle. Keep in mind, though, you can use different shapes to represent different things. Underneath the home page, I can see right now I have a recruiting home and an onboarding page. Now, because these pages already exist, I'm going to copy their links and then just paste them into my whiteboard. And you can see that this is now representing that page. This is actually going to link to recruiting home. So for existing content, I'll just repeat this process. Grab the links and visually represent them in the whiteboard. Now these have child pages, and I have two options here. If each child page is truly unique, I'll represent it as its own object in here. So I'll copy the links and show them on the page. However, I may have content under onboarding that is repeated. It's the same type of document. So instead, I'm going to go grab a different shape. And for this, I like to use the right parallelogram, and I'll use this to represent multiple types of documents. In this example, this might be how-to documentation for onboarding. Next, I'll connect all of these with connectors to show that they are children of specific pages. And this will remind me as I go what goes under what. This is useful because it visually shows me what content lives under which other content, and it helps new folks figure out where their new page should go. Now I have a very high-level overview of the space, and now I can begin planning. I can take a look at this and figure out what do I think is missing. I'll change my shape, and I'll use the square or the rectangle, and maybe I need additional information underneath recruiting home. I have additional recruiting teams, so I'll connect this, and maybe I have a sourcing team. And maybe under recruiting team, I need a specific page on how to interview. And another page on how to schedule. Additionally, I might add another page under the home page. This might represent my HR policies. And under HR policies, maybe I just have a whole list of policies. Now, I would not do all of this on my own. I would work with my team and ask them, what are we missing? What other content do we have to add? And then I would revisit this in a few days just to see what I might have forgotten about. Now, one other very important thing I'll add is a key or a legend describing what all of these shapes do. So I'll just grab a copy of each of these, and then I'll grab a section, and I'll draw a section around them, and I'll call it key, and I'll just label what each thing is. This way, when I come back to this later, or when someone else looks at it, they'll understand what the square means or what the circle means. Now, if this were more complicated, I might also color code these. For example, I might color code based on which team within HR is responsible. So maybe my policy team is responsible for every page that is a slight pink. Maybe I have a dedicated onboarding team and they get all of the green pages. And then my friends over in recruiting all get this nice light green blue color. If you do this though, make sure you add it to your key. So also add a color coding. Again, you don't want someone to look at this and not quite understand what needs to happen or what these colors mean. So by the end of this, I'll have a diagram that defines what I need to do in the space. Now I can visually see all of these shapes haven't been created yet. As of recording, there is no easy way to make a page or a piece of content directly from this. I'll have to go manually add them. However, this makes it much easier to understand my structure and to see where new content should be inserted. It's also a great reference that we can look at any time when we have something new we want to add. We can just go figure out what type of content it is and see where it should fit within this structure. So that is how to use Confluence Whiteboards to map out your Confluence space. I always do this before I start a new space, especially if it's an important one or one that a lot of people will use. For example, something that is company-wide or part of a critical project. Taking even 5 or 10 minutes to think through how I want to structure things saves me a lot of trouble because then when I go to add content, I know where to put it. There are some things you should remember about this though. Don't just do it alone. Make sure you chat with your team to get more perspective and to bounce ideas around to see what could be missing. And always make sure to review and update your content plan by going into the whiteboard and adjusting it every so often. You might do this on a regular basis or before major milestones or parts of the project change. Regardless, take a moment to adjust it as you go to make sure it reflects what you need and where you want to end up going. So that's how I have been using whiteboards to map out my space. Again, I found it very useful, but I'm curious to hear how you manage your Confluence spaces. What planning do you put in to help ensure your space content hierarchy makes sense and that people know where to put things or find new information? Share a comment down below, or if you want real-time chat, join our Discord community. I've got a link to the server in the description. And I'm also happy to share there are now channel memberships if you want to show your support by either being a coffee sponsor or a beer sponsor. Please check out the membership tab if you're interested in more. Thank you so much for taking time to learn with me. There's a lot to learn about Confluence and how we can use it, so I'm glad you're here on your learning journey with me. Thanks again, and I'll see you in one of these again soon. Me again, thank you so much for watching that video. Check out more here, and pop down into the description. I've got a blog with weekly content. I also have a lot of online learning on Atlassian stuff and project management. And if you need personalized training for you and your team, reach out and let me know. I'll be happy to get something set up for you. Thanks again for watching, and I'm looking forward to seeing you here again soon.